The most successful people in the world, and this has been true throughout history, are able to become utterly ordinary. The paradox of this for entrepreneurs is beyond the grasp of many people. And what I notice is there is a consequence. The consequence is living a life of quiet desperation. Most people who live a life of quiet desperation don't know that's what's happening to them. And the idea of Thoreau from Walden Pond, which is, if you know, a poet writer who coined that term, but certainly didn't invent it. It's about recognizing the difference between completion and the experience that something's missing. The life of quiet desperation is not impacted by any possible success. It is not possible to escape the condition that leads to a life of quiet desperation, where there's a feeling that something's missing. There's a feeling that something's wrong by doing anything. It's not possible. That's the human condition. The difference between those who feel completion, in other words, nothing's missing, the feeling nothing's missing, and those that don't and continue to seek answers, stockpile wealth, and chase money is the difference between living your life, or constructing one based on what you've been taught. The idea of originality is completely misunderstood, I'm noticing, in the society. The idea of originality is ordinariness. In other words, getting to the point where there's a recognition that all human beings are, at heart, part of the human condition, but not necessarily trapped in it, that you don't have to be trapped in it. There is a pathway to freedom from this condition. What's the condition? It's the illusion of separation. That's all it is. It's an illusion of separation from existence as it's always been. And the escape from that illusion cannot come from getting anything. There are no answers. There is no wealth. There is no success. There is no position in the hierarchies of society that will close the door on the feeling that something's missing. It's impossible. It's the nature of reality and how things work and how they've always worked, how they work now and how they will always work. The system's not going to change. The condition of the human beings trapped within this fundamental reality of life and the human condition does change. And that's where the confusion comes in. So in today's world, what we're seeking, what we think is missing, is different from what people thought was missing 4,000 years ago, or even 50 years ago, or 100 years ago, or 1,000 years ago. And it's different depending on many factors. Your generational makeup, those who came before you in your group, whether it's an ethnic group or a gender group or a social group or whatever, there is a trap in the condition of that group. And you're in it, and you didn't create that. You're just in it. We're all in it for our group. And it's easy to misunderstand the nature of what that looks like in the society we're in from what's actually happening. There's a trap of what we created in an interwoven way inside our thoughts, actions, and the impact we're making of cause and effect. And it's possible to gain freedom from that, or at least loosen its grip. And as the grip loosens, there's less desperation. And there's more. There's a genetic trap underneath even this, even that. And that genetic trap, it's also possible to release oneself from the genetic trap. This is all possible. The idea of evolution for a dog is that the dog is going to evolve in the cause and effect pattern that leads to dog, whatever that is. It's going to play itself out, and the dog is right in it. The dog's not conscious of the evolutionary pattern. It's a passive evolution with mutations based on interface in the world of experience the dogs are in, same one we're in. It's not the same for human beings, but it is for most. That's the problem. Most people in this world are a victim of their condition. In other words, trapped in their biology. It's always been this way. However, it is possible for any human being to become free from that trap. It is not possible to force that result. It is not possible to seek enlightenment. It is not possible to chase an answer. It is not possible to force a shift and transform oneself into a new self through manipulating the conditions of your life. It's never going to happen. What is possible is to gain freedom to experience one's destiny. What is that? It can't be defined by the society because that's not where the destiny is. This is the trap. This is the confusion. This is an illusion. So the magic trick is to figure out how to uncover, in a sense, remember what your destiny is. And that's done through becoming aware of your thought stream, taking action connected from that thought stream. And as you impact into the world, having a volitional concern or a volitional choice, that's free will, over the impact that's made in the face of friction. What's the friction? Everybody who's not aware of this is bringing the friction into the world. And as you enter into the world, connected into thought and action from destiny, from an inner purpose that's revealing itself in fluid motion, other people are going to not be happy about it. It's not personal. It's when a human being is trapped in the mind, it is a embedding in a belief system that is adopted from societal metrics, results, KPIs, goals, aspirations, strategies, plans, tactics that have been believed in by those who exist within the society. That is not the pathway to freedom, satisfaction, and happiness, and the release of one from the condition of suffering. It's not. It's not. It's never been. as I observe the entrepreneur experience of most people who are entrepreneurs, someone with a vision, they must realize, like an artist or a self-employed coach, where the vision is about helping others, or a self-employed service provider, and the vision is to become great and deliver a service that's connected to your purpose, to good clients, high quality clients who let you do it and appreciate you and pay you enough. That's the better entrepreneur experience. That improved entrepreneur experience is my destiny. My destiny is not to have my own improved entrepreneur experience. My destiny is to provide to the society a pathway to a better entrepreneur experience. In other words, do my part. And what does that look like? Utter ordinariness. I thought I was supposed to be special. I thought I had some secret answers and hidden keys to unlock the doors to the magic of the universe. And as that came into my awareness and my access to consciousness and intelligence in the ether of energy, gave me the feeling of specialness. It wasn't until the specialness disappeared as I became able to learn how to release myself from the prison of vanity, the prison of importance, the prison of getting recognition, all those things. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of prisons. I call them traps. And the pathway out of the trap is through the gifts. There's many gifts. Whose gifts? Your gifts, my gifts. The gifts are where? They're not in a course. They're not in a how-to program that you're going to buy from a guru. They're not. That's their gift. That's what released them. Or they're not released from it at all. It depends. It's hard to tell sometimes. The ability to find and release yourself from these traps is the work. That's it. There is no other work. There's skill building. There's learning how to be an entrepreneur. There's learning how to be a coach. There's learning how to be a service provider. There's an understanding of how to do content. There's a need to present yourself. You need to construct products and offers and experiences and communities and whatever it is. But that's not the real work. The real work is to conquer oneself. And the pathway to conquer yourself, to conquer myself, is the opposite of going into the world and finding someone who has abilities or did something that I wanted to do or want to do. And I've learned from those people. I spent 2 years not just learning the how-to methods from the entrepreneur, how to improve yourself crowd, but doing all of those things, all of them. Anytime I found a how-to method, I did it. And then I realized, and this was January into February of 2023, none of it was going to work. Defining work as freedom from my human condition. In other words, the paradox of knowing there's no answers outside of me anywhere in the society. There's no answers. There isn't one. And I realized that what I was taught was wrong, completely wrong. And I started looking at I started looking in different places. And the first place was inside myself. And I'd already been pretty deep into this rabbit hole as the beginning of the journey into Wonderland was September 20th of 2020 at 5 a.m. That's wake up Neo in the Matrix. If you've seen the Matrix had you follow the white rabbit. And there's many stories like this. Star Wars is the same. It's the hero journey story. The hero journey is not a journey into the world. The hero journey is a journey into self, and then bringing that new self as it's developing into the world and dealing with the friction of the world. That's the battle. The battle of self is the battle of a self being in the world that is resisting one becoming themselves. That's the work. That's the end of the Matrix when Neo jumps into Agent Smith and realizes, I don't have to battle my mind anymore. I don't have to battle inside myself anymore. I can become one with not only myself, but everything. That's what that movie's about to me. It may be about something different to you. That's called perspective. That's called perspective. And the important thing is knowing your perspective, not the belief systems of what your perspective's supposed to be. That's the separation. The inner pathway is a pathway of truth. Whose truth? Your truth. Where is the truth? Is there a truth? Is there a reality? Yeah, I know that this is true. And that reality is accessed inside. Where is it? It's in the collective. We know how it works. We've known how it works for thousands of years. The wisdom traditions of the world explain how it works. Awareness of how it works for me is my work. What does that do in the world? It gets me everything I want. Why? Because prosperity is an emotional feeling of completion. Prosperity is not something you manifest by writing down numbers on pieces of paper. That's just chasing money. That's just chasing wealth. Prosperity unveils itself in your thoughts, actions, and imagination, from imagination in the form of your own destiny. What is it? No one else knows. You're the only one. You're the only one who can do it. But do it in a group. Do it with others. Every tradition that I have been testing out in different experiments, which is what I do, the entrepreneur experiment. I'm the human guinea pig in my own entrepreneur experiment. And then I bring other people into it. Brings groups together. And there's a reason for this. It's 1 + 1 = 3. Two people together with a shared desire, each allowing themselves and each other to fully experience their own vision. Even if you don't agree with someone else in what they're doing, you don't shut them down. You're there for them. That's called witnessing. You're witnessing them. Now, you can ask somebody, what do you think? Does this resonate with you? And someone can say, that doesn't make sense, which means to me, it's violating the principles of life. In other words, you're lying to yourself. And other people can see it easier sometimes than you can. That's hard. That's hard. It's hard to stand in the face of that. Why? Because it's contradicting a belief that I took on, or you, or whoever took on, based on what we've learned from the society, whether it's from our family, the neighborhood, our friends, our profession, the overall culture. It doesn't matter where you are. Pakistan, Africa, Asia, North America, South America, Europe. It doesn't make any difference. It's all the same dynamic. But the nature of those beliefs is very different on the surface. So think about it like an iceberg. The bottom of the iceberg, nothing is different. It's always the same. That's essence. The bottom of the iceberg is essence. The tectonic plates of the blueprint of humanity are at the bottom of the iceberg. But you got to melt the iceberg to start to get towards it. You can't run towards it. You can't pound on the iceberg and push it and force it to do what you want. That's just what most people are doing. That's called chasing wealth, seeking answers, the search for the Holy Grail, the search for the city of lost gold, the gold miners going from the Midwest and the East out to California to find their fortune. Because when I get the gold, I'll have freedom. It's a myth. This doesn't mean don't get money. It doesn't mean that. It's what gets money for you and someone else is prosperity. What's prosperity? It's an inner condition of expansion through melting some of the iceberg. What's underneath the iceberg? That's where the gold is. It's always been there. Alchemy, the alchemist, is in any individual melting the iceberg inside. How do you do that? You got to pay attention to it. That's called awareness. So the KPI is increased awareness. How do you know? You feel better. And eventually you feel better all the time. That doesn't mean you don't have pain. It means your suffering's gone. Now that takes a lot, but you don't have to go that far because, well, you may, it depends. Everyone has their own condition within the human condition. So going inside with awareness, increased self-awareness means more time paying attention to yourself. What resonates with me? What do I want? That's a business development strategy. What resonates with me? Who's it for? Why? Why do I want to do this? Why do I care? Why do I care? It's never to accumulate wealth. That's the illusion from separation from your people. We all have people. We all have a group that resonates with us, and they are resonant with us too. We come together in the marketplace. And that's how the most successful people in the world got there, by being eventually utterly ordinary. In other words, being able to be with everybody in their marketplace. This is why I will never form an elite group. Never. I will never have $100,000 special mastermind only for the top people, because those aren't the top people. Those are just people who have more money and success. I'll never do that. That's not my destiny. I don't think it's anybody's destiny, because those metrics don't matter. They don't matter at all. That's the illusion. That's the belief system. And I've known this most of my life. I just didn't understand it. And I didn't know how it applied to me or what to do about it. I'm going to talk a little bit about my story in relation to this after I finish. So I'll stick on for about 10 more minutes for those who are more deeply interested. What happens in the world is the inner journey leads to going into the world fully. There is no spiritual place to go. There is no outer space. There is no condition of sitting in a hut going om, 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 om by yourself. That's not the point. That's a pathway to the point. What is the point? Each individual discovers it. For some people, it could be to become a monk, but by yourself, no, with other monks, because you're doing something together. You have a shared desire around whatever it is. For some, it's becoming a billionaire. That's your destiny. Become a billionaire. And then do something with the money. What can you do with the money when you're a billionaire? How do you know? This is the KPI. It's got to bring your group together, your people. If you're a billionaire, you got people. It's just a lot of them. And you brought something into the world in an utterly ordinary way that feels extraordinary to other people. And that's out in the world now. And you're willing to go in it, to deal with the friction. Those are called projections. You're willing to do it and allow others to not understand. That's not easy. That's not easy. If you look at an Andy Kaufman, it's almost like He modeled it for the world. He was able to stand in the face of projection where nobody understood what he was doing, and he knew. I don't know him, but it's obvious. It's obvious. When you're an original, a lot of people aren't going to like it because you're waking them up to the fact that they can be an original, because everyone is an original. We all have that destiny, not just the famous, successful people. When you're chasing fame and success, you're not an original. You're chasing fame and success, and that's it. And when you get it, there's a wondering, not that I've gotten that, but I know this is true. There's a wondering because I'm observing it. That's why I know. And I've had my own experience enough to understand what I'm observing. When you're an expert in yourself, at least as far as anyone can be, because you can't be a full expert. There's no such thing as a sage because you can't know everything. We just can't. That's part of the human condition. But there's an awareness you don't know, as opposed to a guru who thinks they know, and then they're going to go save the world and tell everybody with their how-to programs sometimes. That's an illusion. That's someone who in history, they call people like this false prophets. So they can be dangerous because people follow them instead of finding their own path forward with an understanding and support from people who've done it, or a group, or a real guru, like a Sadhguru from the yogic tradition. Those are real gurus. Those are lineage holders that understand inner development at its finest because they did it. So they actually understand it. You can't understand it if you're not already a Buddha or a Bodhisattva, as it's called in the East, or in Christianity. If you don't exist within Christ consciousness, how can you help other people get there? You're stuck in your beliefs about Christianity. How are you going to help other people get to Christ consciousness and the intelligence of the Holy Spirit if you don't know yourself? You're just somebody standing at the pulpit talking about your beliefs and your opinions and your convictions. It's not useful. You're going to attract a lot of people, though, and they'll give you a lot of money, too. And then there's a feeling behind the scenes, I think, with a lot of these people of something's missing with this. And I don't want to admit this to myself because then I have to look at my beliefs. This is what's going on in our society right now because people are starting to confront their beliefs. I lost the thread of what I was saying because I don't practice this stuff. I just talk based on a theme. When I lost my thread, that's all right. 2 minutes, and then I'll stand for another 10. This is the exciting part. The society has to collapse before it rises. Phoenix rises from the ashes when there's ashes, not when things are going great, because they are going great. It's a perspective of, oh my God, what are we going to do? Look at the election and look at all these crises. I don't see it like that. What I see is a society collapsing so it can be reborn. What is it going to be reborn into? Well, that's our job. That's our work. Who's going to do it? Entrepreneurs and coaches and service providers, artists and scientists who are free and they're thinking, who are able to look at things objectively and say, why are we doing it like this? It doesn't make any sense. This healthcare system makes no sense. This financial funding system for entrepreneurs makes no sense. These governments, the way they're running, makes no sense. And instead of getting enmeshed in a debate about beliefs, isms, socialism, capitalism, progressivism, conservatism, those are just belief systems. They're in the way. Freedom from the belief systems leads to independent inquiry, scientific inquiry. That is part of our nature. That leads to observational understanding. There are people all over the world that are looking at everything. Our minds are sharp across the world. How do we do this differently? How do we do this better? What is the common theme of all of those people? They're doing something new. Entrepreneurs. There's a vision. It comes from inside. It's a destiny. How do we do it? Together. That's how we do it. There's no other way. The power of togetherness Works. It worked for Gandhi, worked for Martin Luther King Jr., worked for Harvey Milk. It works. It works everywhere. It works in the neighborhood. It works. It always works. The power of togetherness comes from knowing yourself. You can't force it. You can't force people to progress. You can't wake people up and have them become woke. And you can't get them to conserve, in other words, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, what's good, but that they believe is in the way, but they don't see it like you do, because you realize there's certain things in the society that we want to hold on to. That's a conservative. Conservatism, progressivism is the problem. The inclination to progress with some people and the inclination to conserve for other people is good. That's your contribution. But unless you're allowing other people to make theirs, you're in the way. And that's the problem. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience in relation to this, because otherwise I just sound like another opinion and crazy person ranting with a bunch of beliefs, and that's not what's going on with me at all. Why would I do this? I have another business, not Red Pill Pathway or the Entrepreneur Experience. It's a sales outsourcing lead generation company. And if I just worked in that, my financial situation would be better. I spent 4 years figuring out who I am and bringing that into the world in the form of ways of engagement, creating experiences, understanding all of these different business models in the modern world and how to deploy them as an entrepreneur, not just for me, but how it works and how to figure out which ones work for you. That was a terrible financial decision for me and my family. I put everything on the line at risk. So why would I do this? Because I had to. So Kevin Costner's character in Field of Dreams didn't want to build the field. And his wife was like, what are you doing? He didn't want to do it, but he did. That's the fight. So when you feel that inner feeling of, I got to do this crazy thing, and everybody's telling you that's not practical, we're moving into the age of miracles right now. It's already happened. We're in a new age, the age of miracles. And the age of miracles means that you are willing, I'm willing to live on the razor's edge. That's not easy, but it's the only path forward into a miracle for yourself. That's called prosperity. These prosperity strategies require, it's not sacrifice because it feels right. And there is a moment where there is an inevitability, where you don't need proof of life. You don't need the money in the bank or the followers or the likes or the fans or the success, measurable KPIs, measurable success. You don't need it anymore because you found your people and you have prosperity inside. That's the key. It's the people. I call it market and people. It's the right ones for you. And there's a pathway to it. That's a business development pathway I call More Money Now. And then there's a prosperity pathway I call the Red Pill pathway. And it's in eight stages and 3 groupings: thought, action, and impact. And those things need to go together. You can't separate them out. But some people are pretty good in parts and not as good in others. Some people are better on the inner side, but they don't know how to go out in the world with it. So they're fine prosperity-wise inside, but what they're doing isn't turning into anything tangible. So there's friction in that, and there's some maybe iceberg melting inside. Iceberg melting is getting into your belief systems and releasing your burdens. So the suffering diminishes and eventually goes away. Some people are great at that, but they don't know how to bring that into their marketplace in a way that's viable. And often the problem is they're being taught by marketers, and the marketers don't understand this unless they're not using marketing, but they call themselves marketers, but they're really not. They're communicators. That's important. clear communication is critical and extraordinarily difficult. And certainly for me, it was. Now I feel like I'm there the way I want to be, because you find your voice. Artists talk about this. Making the art in your head isn't any good if no one can understand it. And if you're doing something new, they often won't understand it, but you know they will. So that's a Picasso or Van Gogh or somebody who's got a new kind of music that people can't. Thelonious Monk leaving a lot of notes out, but he left out the right notes. Why? Because it comes from inside. So that's the idea of the creative act. We're creative. Who? All of us. We all have a creative project inside. It's just different. Some people's creativity is coaching. A guy like who wrote the Hardison, The Ultimate Coach, Rich Litvin, those people. That's a creative act. Warren Buffett, he talks about it. He says financial analysis is my painting. He's painting. It's a creative act. That's why he was so successful. It's not because he's smarter than everybody else. It's because he figured out who he is, and he allowed that to happen for himself. And his partner, Charlie Munger, who just died at 99, is totally different than Warren. And he calls himself a human. He called himself a human learning machine. He says, my kids think of me as a book with legs sticking out. And he said, it's, the lifelong learning and improvement in your knowledge is a better way for him, because then he doesn't have to be good at anything. And I feel like that fits me. So I really relate to Charlie, not Warren. So Charlie resonates with me. Warren doesn't resonate, because I'm not going to analyze data, big data sets, and see a picture in it. He could see the whole company by reading the financial reports. Charlie looked at it through mental models. He explains it in Poor Charlie's Almanac. They're different. So that's a perfect partnership. Perfect partnership. And they found each other. That's the group. The group is the partnership. 1 + 1 = 3. It's a marriage. 2 spouses create a marriage. 2 partners create a company, or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or whatever. Now, there's new ways of doing this, which is what I'm doing, which is called a synarchy by a guy like Richard Rudd in the Gene Keys. That's just a group of people allowing each other to become who they are and not interfere with it, but have a shared desire around improving the entrepreneur experience. And in the blueprint of essence, which is underneath all the forms we're living in, be able to be able to give up the stuff you're not supposed to be doing. So for me specifically, I had to give up control over the operational mechanics of the company to people who don't work in the company. They're just founding members of the group. I had to give up control to them, but I took it pretty far because I can do that. That's my natural inclination. Magical creator, explorer, thinker in the blueprint. But there's a moment where I can't finish. Now, this is a partnership opportunity. So for me, it's a group. For some, it's just a partner. For me, it's partners and a group at the same time together, but not alone. I couldn't do this alone. I did my other companies alone, but then I brought in other people, but I didn't understand how it worked. Now I do, in terms of the interrelationships between people around a shared desire. 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals massive success when it's time. If you're chasing that money and you're chasing that success so you can feel secure because you stockpiled wealth in a society that confuses security with wealth, then you're not going to get there. You'll never have prosperity. The prosperity is the feeling. It's architected first inside through figuring out who you are. And that automatically allowed me to do it with other people and let them be themselves. That's special and it's different and it's possible for anyone to do. And there will always be another person or group always in this. And there will always be an inner awareness needed. And there will always be a need to pay attention to the society and not float off into the spiritual realms by yourself. Those are all stages and part of the journey. But at the end, it all leads to one place, which is utter ordinariness, just being yourself in the world and making your contribution selfishly.